Hey, babe. Hey, baby dolls. You know something? I had a rather funny nightmare a week or so ago. By the way, do you like my mullet? I cut it this way some months ago. Before I was about to go out, I was cutting it stages at a time. I was intending to cut it really short at some point, but I was doing it in stages because it seemed like a massive task doing it all at once, standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom and cutting it all off while getting hot and sweaty. But anyway, I digress, my sons and daughters. The purpose of this video is to tell you about a nightmare I had a week or so ago. 'Cause you know how Nana Visitor, who played Kira Nerys, was one of my celebrity crushes at times in my life, and I wrote like 1,000 plus stalkerish messages to her online from 2013 to 2016. Well, I had this nightmare that because of how I was quite a prolific trekkie back in my younger years in life, well, the whole Star Trek lore seems to be ingrained somewhat in my psyche because the nightmare I had involved her being partially assimilated by the Borg. For those of you who don't know, the Borg were a spacefaring conglomerate of alien cyborgs that sought perfection, and they wanted to consume the knowledge of other races by assimilating them and turning them into cyborgs like the Borg were, so that they could gain from their knowledge and essentially use those assimilated victims and races as slaves to support their cause. And the Borg drones, each individual Borg drone or cyborg, whatever you want to call them, they all looked very scary. And so when Kira Nerys, Nana Visitor's character, was assimilated in my dream, partially assimilated, I was suddenly scared to be around her because I was in the dream as well. Maybe I was some kind of a Deep Space Nine character or something in the dream. I can't remember for sure. Pretty funny, the idea of a trollish man like me being in Deep Space Nine, isn't it? But yes, I was scared to be around her, even though I think she had some semblance of I think she had some semblance of her individuality and free speech, but she had some wires going into her, one going into her chin somewhere, I think, and she was wearing this sinister black greyish outfit, similar to what Captain Picard was wearing when he was going through the early stages of assimilation by the Borg. You know, when he didn't have all that many implants on his face, and So you could still clearly see both of his eyes, but he still had freaky looking wires going into his head, and he was still brainwashed by the Borg cause, so he was willing to tell his former crewmates, Commander Riker and whatnot, that resistance was futile and that they would be forced to help the Borg assimilate planet Earth once they were assimilated themselves and whatnot. Well, no, they would just be forced to kind of contribute to the Borg's efforts to attain perfection. And she had that grey outfit on, similar to what Captain Picard had on when he was first assimilated. When he was in the early stages of assimilation, that is, but when he didn't look as quite as scary as he eventually looked when his skin was all white, was all chalk white, and he had implants covering one of his eyes and whatnot. But yes, quite a scary dream to have, that, isn't it? Of dreaming of a celebrity crush that you've had on and off at times in life, and then dreaming that you're scared to be around her because she's partially assimilated. It makes I think the reason for it in the storyline, why she was partially assimilated in my dream, is because it had to be done, because she had some kind of life-threatening illness or something, and she needed to be partially assimilated so that the Borg nanoprobes could cure her or something like that. It's all, this is just guesswork, because the dream I had was some weeks ago, so it's all kind of sketchy and vague in my head. It makes me think of a message I once wrote to her back in my days of stalking her online, when I said about this Deep Space Nine character called Grand Nagus Zek. He was a high-ranking member. He was a high-ranking member of the Ferengi race. Well, he was the leader of the Ferengi race, to be honest. The Ferengi were a race of capitalists who were obsessed with money and making profit. And in one episode he talked about going on a vacation to this beach planet or something where the waves of the sea made such harmonic sounds and had such a harmonic, relaxing rhythm that it could trigger pleasing, or as he put it, stimulating hallucinations. And I said in my message to Nana visitor once that I'd be scared to go to a planet or a place like that, because I've always found the idea of hallucinations scary and terrifying. And I said that if I was to have a hallucination based on Star Trek lore, I'd probably see something really scary and traumatizing, something which would possibly pay me back for my obsessive stalkerish ways, such as seeing an assimilated version of Kira Nerys coming at me wanting to assimilate me for being obsessed, for having once been obsessed. For having once been obsessed with her. That was just my OCD making me hesitate and have panic attacks when I hesitate with my speech. Just maybe once I stop talking about, maybe once Maybe once I stop talking about my OCD, the angst will go away. Well, yeah. But yeah, that was pretty much all I wanted to say anyway. Quite an interesting and twisted dream, eh? Gives you some insight into this very scary thing that is my mind, doesn't it? Anyway, with that being said, I'll bid all you fine folks farewell. So yes, goodbye.